What compelled you to learn how to make ice cream when you were in elementary school?
I love ice cream. My freezer was always full of ice cream. And so I was like, well, I'm going to teach myself how to make ice cream.
Did you have any idea that you thought this was going to work as well as it did in terms of the product selling?
We launched it in stores April 7th. And that day, we had people DMing us being like, that's not in Whole Foods yet. I went to 3 different stores. Like, I can't find it. Where is it? Yeah, it's just lifted the brand. It's lifted our pint sales as well. So it hasn't really cannibalized. It's been a really pretty amazing thing to see.
Hey, I'm Mike Gelb, and this is Consumer VC, where we break down what it takes to invest in and build scalable consumer brands. If you're enjoying this show, hit subscribe on your favorite platform and sign up to the newsletter at theconsumervc.com. At theconsumervc.com, you'll get a weekly roundup of the latest fundraisers, product launches around consumer, and new episodes of this podcast. Know that when you subscribe, you're helping us make more of this content. Our guest today is Alec Jaffe, who is the founder and CEO of Alex's Ice Cream. How Alex's Ice Cream is different from conventional ice cream is that it uses sustainable regenerative dairy and A2 protein dairy that's also gluten-free, which is better for digestion and low inflammation. Recently, they raised an $11 million Series A led by Imaginary Ventures. In this episode, we discuss why Alex started experimenting with ice cream in the first place and the problem that he was solving that he thinks hasn't been solved in ice cream, why they decided to become vertically integrated, also why they took on venture money, and how Culture Cup, their product expansion, exploded the business, which was a really, really interesting and cool story. But before we get to Alex, before we get into it, I want to share more information about our sponsor, Glimpse. This episode is brought to you by Glimpse. Glimpse is an AI-powered end-to-end deductions management service that's focused on recovering revenue from KeHE, UNFI, Amazon, and Target for consumer brands. They help by they centralize deductions with backups. They fully handle disputing on your behalf, the brand's behalf, and they streamline the accounting process. They work with 100+ brands that include Pure Hydration, Little Bucks, and Sauce. If you have a brand and would like to learn more about how they can help you fight deductions in retail, go to tryglimpse.com. That is tryglimpse.com. Without further ado, here is Alec. Alec, thank you so much for joining me here today. Happy Friday.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy Friday.
First of all, I love your ice cream. It's absolutely delicious. Tell me, what compelled you to learn how to make ice cream when you were in elementary school?
So I love ice cream. Like any kid, it's just something that I can remember when, coming back from basketball games as a kid, we'd stop at Baskin Robbins on the way home. My freezer was always full of ice cream at home. It just was kind of this thing that we would always have. And so I was like, well, I'm going to teach myself how to make ice cream, and never had any idea it would lead to where I'm at today.
When did you think about then ice cream in regarding to actually creating an ice cream business?
So I was working in tech at a startup, and I was a sales and marketing employee at this small startup. And the company was shutting down. I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to do for my career, my life? And started playing around with some different ideas. I just kind of had this itch to create something, and started experimenting with a bunch of different products. One of them being ice cream, of course. And I recognized that there just wasn't an ice cream in the market that tasted amazing and was made with really great high quality ingredients that I could feel good about and were better for me. And that kind of just I was like, oh, this is a really interesting potential opportunity. So just started experimenting with recipes at home, making product for friends and family, and spent a long time doing that. And then eventually people liked the product enough. I was like, okay, maybe this will be a interesting business idea, and started going from there.
Can you walk me through in terms of how you thought about your definition in terms of like high quality ingredients? How you thought about even like the supply chain side of things from the get-go, and elaborate as well in terms of what other companies you felt like they were not doing?
So I was looking for an ice cream that, like I noticed that there was ice creams that either tasted great, but I didn't feel great after eating them, or these low calorie ice creams that really were frozen dessert kind of food science experiments that didn't taste that great to me. And I was like, why can't we combine the sort of ethos or mission of what these products are trying to do into one thing? And so I started with just like, how can we make a really clean, simple, delicious, organic ice cream pint? And using really high quality. We started with local pasture raised family farms. And then, use really simple ingredients and kind of build it from there. And then we eventually started transitioning into like A2 dairy, getting involved with regenerative farming, and just continuing to further this mission of delicious ice cream that tastes better and is better for you and the planet.
When can you walk us through in terms of what the difference is between, in your mind, a frozen dessert versus ice cream?
So it's a standard of identity created by the FDA, and it has to do with how much butter fat is in the ice cream, how many what they call solids, how much air can you whip into the product. There's all sorts of things that go into it. And so a frozen dessert is like, less than it's less fat, it's more air, it's less solids typically. And so it's just like literally a different product, although it can resemble ice cream.
How did you go about, I guess, building these relationships with farmers, and then for local pasture raised family farms?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of just kind of time and effort of reaching out, building relationships, and networking within the dairy world, and going out to the different suppliers, different distributors. And I would say we're very involved with our supply chain, much more so than typically you would be for a brand at our size. And especially with dairy in itself is a very unique supply chain that requires you to be very involved with the farm level side of things.
Can you talk a little bit about as well how you thought about experimenting with in terms of when you felt like you actually nailed it and got it right when it came to taste, and also as well, feeling better afterwards? And a dumb question, but is it because of the higher quality ingredients that you feel better afterwards? Because of Alex, is there other in terms of different quantities that you're kind of thinking about as well when it comes to different ingredient choices? How do you think about nailing that part of it too?
I think that the A2 dairy we use is a big component of that. It's been pretty incredible how so many customers reach out to us and say that they can finally enjoy ice cream again because of the A2 dairy that we use. And they don't have digestion issues, and they don't have any discomfort after eating our ice cream. So I would give a lot of credit to that. And then I think just having a clean, simple ingredient list is also helpful.
So what was the approach first when it came to distribution, and when did you know that when you had the right product that you felt like had a shot of doing well?
So we started locally. We started we're based in the Bay Area around San Francisco. And we have actually our own manufacturing facility in a town called Petaluma, California. And so we started really just selling to stores locally around the factory. I would drop off product and put it on the shelf myself. Our first retailer was Good Earth Natural Foods in Mill Valley. And I would stop by and drop off product there. And then I think it was really just looking at consumer feedback and hearing people saying how much they love the product, seeing the sales going, and then also feeling like we had something really unique and different. was something that just made me feel like, okay, like let's just keep expanding this. And also we found a shut down ice cream factory. And so we moved in there. And it's like, well, we have this factory as well. Let's try to build capacity and, get volume going through the factory. And then I think this year when we came out with our new Culture Cup line, that has really been a huge spark in like, okay, now that we've grown a lot within the natural grocery channel, working with retailers like Whole Foods, to build that initial base and that initial interest in the product. And now that we have something that seems like it's really working, how do we start expanding that into wider channels beyond the natural channel?
Love to get into a bit more to how you think about crossing that chasm, because I've talked to investors and they say, the sweet spot is you find a brand that's kind of like doing really well in natural, but are able to generate enough appeal, price point, and everything to actually be able to kind of cross that chasm and actually really excel into big box, into mass. How do you think about just channel diversification? And as you mentioned, you started with natural, but how do you think about like doing that leap or just overall like different sales channels?
Yeah, I would say it's about, I think about a lot of like, okay, who is shopping in the store and what are the things that they actually care about? And you have to have a product that appeals to, let's just use Whole Foods as like a representative of the natural channel. But like, how do you have something that appeals to the Whole Foods shopper, but then also appeals to Kroger, Target, Walmart, Costco, all those different types of shoppers as well. And so I think it's about finding something that delivers on some unique attributes to the category that have a widespread enough appeal that you can feel confident about jumping over to those channels. And then also ultimately just delivering on taste. Like we're making ice cream. It has to taste good. And if you have something that tastes good and it also stands out as unique, then I think you really set yourself up for being able to jump over into those channels. But it is super difficult. Like it's not like you just put the product in and then all of a sudden it starts working in those other channels. Like you need to make sure you have the right pricing, the right promo plans, the right marketing support. There's a lot there.
Well, I just if you can dig into about pricing as well, because that'd be just how you think about it from a where you maybe have natural channel, which you might have a bit more a customer base that has a bit more disposable income versus mass, which or conventional that where they might not. How do you think about balancing? And I know that you can get a lot more granular, obviously, but just as a kind of a 40,000 foot step from it, how do you think about from that perspective?
I would say that it's all like within the context of your category that you're in. And so, all right, we're going to the ice cream set, and let's say we're going into a conventional retailer. It's our first time going into conventional retailer. I'm often looking at what is the ceiling? How much are people trained to or experienced with paying for ice cream at the high end? And then who are we really competing against? And if we're going to be at a premium, how much of a premium are we going to be? And is that an approachable premium? You don't want to be double the price of your closest competition. But if you are offering something that is a more premium product than what's out there, then you should be able to get that premium. But it just has to be within reason, or that to get people to be willing to trade up for what you're selling. And then I think it's about having attributes within the product, things that are make your product unique and different. Do people understand the value of that? You can have a super unique, different thing about your product that makes it really cool in your eyes. But if the people shopping at a Kroger don't even know what that is, then they're like, well, why am I paying $2 more for this thing? I don't even know what this whatever differentiating factor about your product is. So that's also part of the challenge, is being different, but familiar at the same time.
Do you think about it as well as in front of your category? Is there, from conventional ice cream per se, like how much premium percentages would people be willing to actually pay for regarding your product?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's very dependent on the retailer and the environment, but I feel like, up to like 25% is probably the high end. Maybe 30% depends. It all depends on like, well, what do you have and what do you.
This episode is brought to you by Glimpse. Glimpse is an AI-powered end-to-end deductions management service that's focused on recovering revenue from KeHE, UNFI, Amazon, and Target for consumer brands. They centralize deductions with backups. They fully handle disputing on your behalf, the brand's behalf, and streamline the accounting process. For more information, check out tryglimpse.com and let them know that Mike sent you.
How engaged is that shopper who's looking for that thing? And if you have something that, maybe they will pay 50% more if they like desperately want this thing, and you're the only one who's offering it, or you've put it together in a really compelling way. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of category dynamics at play that make it hard to just say like, here's like the percentage that you can go premium.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you. I know you just raised a big round, a Series A, which congratulations. That's so exciting and incredible, especially in today's market. Just really impressive and just awesome. Talk a little bit about those early stages of raising capital when you were much smaller. How were you able to do it? When was it the right time in order to raise that capital as well? And what do you think about your journey?
We had a unique start in that we found we were having some trouble finding a co-packer to work with us because we had some unique requirements around our dairy supply, and we're a small volume because we're a brand new brand. And we ended up finding this shutdown factory. They were going out of business. It's a 4,000 square foot factory, so it's tiny, and we were just leasing the space, but we bought all the equipment that was installed. So it wasn't a huge investment, but we needed to make that investment. So that required us raising money kind of from the beginning. We really took the approach of just like scrapping together angel rounds as we tried to prove out the concept. And then when we really started to see some real traction on a national basis, that's when we started to go out to more like the venture funds and raise money there. And then honestly, it was a slog. It was so hard, really, really difficult for a variety of reasons. One, investors are scared of ice cream. They're scared of frozen. They don't like the margins compared to like supplements or beverage or whatever. And I think when we launched Culture Cup, that really put us in a new place in investors' eyes of seeing this really interesting product that was very differentiated. And that really helped things. But, I think it's about, and I'm glad saying it now, I'm glad that it went that way, because I think if we would have signed up to go with a VC too early, there's all the growth expectations that come with that. And that's fine. Like that's the game that you're signing up to play if you go that route. And the business wasn't ready for that. And the product and the proposition wasn't ready for that at that time. So yeah, I think it was like, for us, we needed to find our footing more until we were ready for that jump up. So
in retrospect, it was better that you weren't able to maybe have a VC on before because you didn't have Culture Cup yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like it was more about what Culture Cup represented, I guess, of like finding this really breakout product that was going viral on social kind of from day one, selling out at Whole Foods from day one, and just having this product that then warranted the VC kind of like okay, you're signing up for this. Like, it's cool to get all that money, but also like, here's what you're signing up for. And so being, and like, that's just what it is. Like, no judgment on it, good or bad. It's just what the dynamics of that route are. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, it's just like, it was harder. It was harder not having all that money. Like, I definitely would have loved to have all that money back then, but the business wasn't ready for it. So I think it's all like, when you get to a certain point, then you go do that thing. But versus like trying to skip steps.
How did you come up with the idea of Culture Cup?
We came up with the idea. So we were asked to create a novelty product, which ice cream novelties are anything that's not ice cream, like a pint or a tub. And Culture Cup, like, kind of technically isn't a novelty; it's a cup, but we packaged it like a novelty, and so it's sold in a 4-pack. We're like, okay, we have our own factory. Our factory is tiny. We don't have the footprint to install a novelty line to make like a ice cream bar or a sandwich. So what can we do? Well, we can make these little cups. And then how do we make these little cups interesting? And that led to the brainstorming of just thinking through, well, let's add the probiotics in, because then we already have the A2 dairy, or we already have this like gut friendly dairy. Let's add the probiotics that really hit on that gut health aspect of what we're doing. And then we added the chocolate shell which added a really fun sensory texture experience. And it's all about just how do we stay aligned to what our brand represents, and create something that's super different and unique that we can also make in our own factory. And so it was really, I think, a story of constraints leading to interesting innovation.
That's awesome. And did you have any idea that you thought this was going to work as well as it did in terms of the product selling?
It's gone. I had high hopes for the product. I would say it's gone better than I expected.
Okay. Congrats.
So it's been something that, like, I was like, okay, I think this will be really interesting, really unique. It hits on some things that are very wide appealing attributes and trends, like with probiotics, lower calories, lower sugar, tastes surprisingly great for a quote unquote healthy ice cream. And I was like, okay, let's put it out there. Let's see how it goes. And I feel like as a brand, we had kind of quietly been building this very loyal following, but it wasn't like we had, blown up on social media or gone viral or anything like that. And so I was, cautiously optimistic. And our social media manager put out a post on her personal handle on TikTok, like a couple weeks before the launch, just as like kind of a thing that she did, just, having fun on TikTok. And there's like a basic carousel, still images, like the lowest production. It's just like lo-fi, like TikTok, still images, carousel text on the image. And it was really nicely done, but not anything like crazy. And it just started, it got more traction than anything we had ever posted ever, by far. Like hundreds of thousands of views, over 1,000 comments, like such a positive sentiment around like what people were saying in the comment section, which you never get that on the internet. And it just was we launched it in stores April 7th. And that day we had people DMing us being like, it's not in Whole Foods yet. I went to 3 different stores. Like, I can't find it. Where is it? And I'm like, well, it's day 1 of the reset. Like, just give us a couple of weeks. And it just has been going crazy ever since then. And it's just lifted the brand. It's lifted our pint sales as well. So it hasn't really cannibalized. It's been a really pretty amazing thing to see.
How do you think about quantities overall? Because you are vertically integrated in that you have your own factory. How do you, which obviously when you have kind of 2 different product sets, I'd imagine it's challenging. How how do you, or you can tell me that it's not challenging, but how do you think about that in terms of expansion with Culture Cup selling and performing really well? Not that the pints aren't. The pints obviously are the original, the staple product from the beginning. But how do you think about that kind of balancing act?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, we've got two different product lines. We have one tiny little factory. We only have one production line. So we're changing things over, trying to make things work. And then it's just, it's also a lot of just inventory management. You've got a lot of SKUs, and then you're marketing both products. So it's created some challenges of like, okay, how do we evolve as more of this like platform ice cream brand versus like just selling our pints? And like the pints aren't low calorie or low, we're not marketed. They're not like, they're really delicious, indulgent pints made with gut friendly A2 dairy and like cleaner ingredients. And that's a little bit of a different message than Culture Cup. And so how do we thread that needle of showing up consistently as a brand? But I think ultimately it's all kind of worked and flowed together because there are these core links between the two products with clean ingredients, A2 dairy, gut healthy, and just taste and delicious product experiences.
How also, I know that you kind of talked a little bit about the story in terms of why you vertically integrated, at least on the manufacturing side, that there was this old factory, and it's like, well, we have, it seems like a really good deal here in place. At the same time, managing a factory and managing your brand, two very different, two different businesses, right? In a lot of ways. What has been your approach when it comes to managing the factory and also even how you think about with product expansion? Now you're national in so many different retailers, about capacity constraints or what have you.
Yeah. That's something that we really came up against this summer of, we got too much demand and we can't, and
which is a great problem. Which is a great problem to have. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's, I've heard that line a lot this year. It's a great problem to have. And it is, it really is.
But it's still a problem.
But it's still a problem. And so how do we solve it? And so we've done some work on expanding, production capacity and, making sure that we're able to fill our orders. And then on the business, it really is like managing two different businesses. You're sort of your own co-packer. So you're dealing with production, but when the machine breaks down, it's on you. Your maintenance person needs to go and be able to fix it. I've learned so much on the operational side of things because it forces you to, when you're running that factory, like your ops needs to be dialed in. You can't be loose there. And so I think it's really helped us build a strong culture of being really on top of the details with how we operate, how we look at everything from production planning to food safety. And then, I think in the early days, especially when you're resource constrained, it puts a challenge on marketing. Like we're spending a lot of dollars at the factory that other brands just get to throw directly into marketing. And so I'm really excited with the funding that we've just raised, that now we're going to be able to start to do a little more on the marketing front, put some more budget there. It is a challenge that anyone who does self-manufacturing will tell you. You have to really get good at balancing those two things.
Managing working capital and that side of the business. Do you think it becomes easier or harder when you self-manufacture?
In a way, it depends. It depends. I think almost harder though, in some ways. In some ways it's easier because you can do smaller production runs. You can kind of have a lot more control over when you run production. Like you don't have a co-man saying, well, you need to hit your MOQ. And so we're going to have to schedule you for 5 more days or whatever it might be. At the same time, you're kind of always running production, and sometimes that agility can hurt you where you keep too many raw materials on hand because you're like, well, we want to be able to always be making something and we want to have throughput in the factory. Whereas with a co-man, you kind of know, all right, we've got our however many production days coming up next month, order all the materials to land right before production starts. Then you have your finished good inventory that you're then selling through. And so it creates a lot more simplicity, I would say, when you're co-packing, in that like your working capital is really just like materials going in, you're running production.
This episode is brought to you by Glimpse. Glimpse is an AI-powered end-to-end deductions management service that's focused on recovering revenue from KeHE, UNFI, Amazon, and Target for consumer brands. They centralize deductions with backups, they fully handle disputing on your behalf, the brand's behalf, and streamline the accounting process. For more information, check out tryglimpse.com and let them know that Mike sent you.
Got the finished goods. It's like very straightforward. You don't have to do with any like accounting around the manufacturing costs and all of that. So in some ways that simplicity really helps, but then in other ways you lose control. So like with anything, there's the trade-offs of it.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I'd imagine it's also when you obviously have your own plant, then you also have as well you're then of course it's salaries as well that you're managing too, right? And it's it's a lot more kind of intensive there from that standpoint, instead of paying one set sum out to a co-man. So that also can be probably a lot more challenging because you're obviously dealing and working with those people day to day.
Yeah, and especially as you're scaling the brand. And so it can force you as a brand to make certain choices that maybe you wouldn't make if you're co-packing, because you need to just fill volume in your factory. And then, you have those ongoing costs. You have your labor force that you're paying on a daily basis. You have, when they're and then you have repairs, maintenance, all these things that like something's always breaking at a factory and you need to have people coming in and fixing it. You're ordering spare parts, all these things that you don't think about or have to deal with when you're just putting a PO into a co-man.
Now, as you mentioned, you're working with local pasture-raised family farms. As you scale and you're scaling the business, how I'd imagine it's partnering with more farms that is the answer in terms of that. But how much runway do you have when it comes to on the actual, I would say, like raw ingredient side of things?
Yeah, I mean, dairy is going through a really unique market stage right now. I guess it's an interesting place right now. Because demand for dairy has shot up like crazy. We've seen more growth in the dairy market from people buying dairy products, just like fluid milk.
Why do you think that is?
I think that people are reverting back to more animal-based diets. I mean, you have everything from like the carnivore diet to people just wanting to get more protein, and dairy is a great nutrient-rich source of protein. And so you're seeing people turn back to dairy. And I think there's a lot of cultural things going on that are leading to that. And so when all of a sudden you have this huge spike in demand and something like dairy where you can't just like easily turn on more supply, you can't just all of a sudden create more cows. It's something that takes the supply chain some time to catch up. So we're doing a lot of work to make sure that we're prepared and able to keep growing, which we are. But it's definitely a unique supply chain compared to a lot of other materials that people are using.
So do you think, so with demand, I guess, surging with dairy, how will supply react? Do you think that we're not going to be able to fulfill the demand for that we're seeing in resurgence of for dairy?
No, I think like with anything, when there's demand, the supply will catch up to it. But it just, it takes a little bit of time for that adjustment to happen.
Are you also seeing more like local pasture family farms? Like, just the number, is that at all increasing as well? Or is that pretty consistent?
To this point, more farms have been closing, and that's kind of a trend just generally throughout the US. And so hopefully with this spike in demand, that'll create more market opportunities where farms can have better opportunities and stay afloat, or maybe people get into it. But yeah, that's also the challenge as well, is just like people wanting to go into farming. And dairy farming is it's a lot of work. So it's not something that I'm saying that lightly. But that's a dynamic as well. You have demand increasing, you have age of farmers increasing and them wanting to retire, and do kids want to take over the family farm? And that's something that's happening throughout the agricultural system. And so, it's all these big supply chain things that we're quickly having to figure out and navigate.
When did your passion for regenerative agriculture begin?
So I grew up going to my aunt and uncle's, we call it a ranch, but it was, like a small, vineyard in the Central Valley of California. It's in the Cuyama Valley, which is on the other side of the mountains behind Santa Barbara, for anyone familiar with that area. And so they have a organic dry farm vineyard. They're very small production. And we grew up going there every year for Thanksgiving, and just like being on the farmland, learning about agriculture. My uncle was a professor of agroecology at UC Santa Cruz. And so like being around these people who are super passionate about sustainable farming and agriculture and agricultural systems, was really my first exposure to it. And then as we got into this more and more, seeing that, we have an opportunity to make an impact through our supply chain, was something that got me really excited. And so being able to work with farmers to create market opportunities for them, bring something unique to the market from a product standpoint, and then work with farms to actually make an impact on our environment, was something that was really exciting to me.
What can you also just tell us? Because I feel like it's just a term that gets thrown out there a lot, but
sure.
And that's and I'm sure that I'm guilty of this. But when you think about regenerative agriculture, how do you think about it? What is it? How do you think about it in terms of if a farm or if a farm is actually subscribing to it?
Yeah. So I think this is this is a pretty like hot button issue within the regenerative community on what is regenerative. How do you define it?
Yeah.
Does it have to be organic? Can regenerative be not organic? Is it practices based? Is it outcomes based? Is it does it need to be certified? Should that be a government certification, or are these private certifications okay? There's so many things around just how do we define regenerative? And candidly, I think that's one of the biggest challenges and limitations of the regenerative movement really growing and gaining consumer traction is if we can't define it internally as a group, how are we supposed to expect shoppers to define it in their minds when they need to make decisions in seconds? And the way I think about it is I prescribe to more of an outcomes-based approach of, are you doing things that are actively regenerating the earth, creating more organic matter, carbon matter in the soil, and then creating healthier ecosystems on your farmland. And that's like a pretty broad stroke, but I mean, we don't need to get into like every little specific of it, because it's also different for every farm. But I think that's ultimately the way I look at it, is like, are you actively repairing the planet and the soil that is on your land or not? Is ultimately how I think about it. And then that's going to look different for a dairy farm versus someone who's farming almonds or, peaches or whatever. Like it's all going to be a little different and nuanced based on even a dairy farm in California versus a dairy farm in Texas. Like it's just going to look a little different.
How do you think about, since it's going to be looking a little different in terms of the base level that you need from a farm in order to partner with them in order to produce ice cream?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think with dairy, rotational grazing is the big one. Getting cows out on pasture and sort of acting as the natural maintenance crew for that land, fertilizing it, maintaining healthy grass levels without eating it down to the roots, making sure that soil's covered by healthy grasses. And that's really like the big thing that I'm looking for. And then, there are other things that go along with it, but that's the biggest thing. And then we work with Land to Market as our third party certifier, and they're going out to those farms and actually measuring the soil and doing annual testing and testing, are we creating the outcomes that we're looking for to regenerate the soil? And that's not something, I think one thing that's challenging with this is environmental change. And these big changes, they don't happen in 90 days. This isn't something where you start like, okay, we're rotational grazing, like planet is healed. Like it doesn't work that way. It takes time, it takes years. And it's making sure that there's consistent effort and management and measurement of those outcomes to ensure that we're working towards what we're wanting to achieve.
That's really helpful. And I also appreciate, thanks so much for kind of telling us in terms of the overall consumer appetite when it comes to dairy and how that's really upticked the last few years. Talk to me a little bit about like the frozen section too and the freezer section, because that's a very competitive space to play. There's only so many products that can obviously go in a freezer. It's really tough. At the same time, it seems like retailers have been wanting more innovation in that space. When you look at even, other categories besides ice cream, what was it like trying to sell Alex from the beginning into the freezer space? And just overall, how do you think about your category and then freezer in general?
Frozen is really hard because it's kind of obvious.
Also have a frozen supply chain.
Yeah. One, just getting the product to the store is hard. Like, let alone selling it, getting it on shelf, but even just getting the product to the store's like back freezer, that's hard enough. And then after that, you have a limited set of shelf space. They can't, if they want to extend or create space for you for a shelf stable product, if they want to do it bad enough, they likely can find some square footage to put you in their store, but they're not going to build another freezer. So you're working with this finite set of space, and then there's a ton of innovation happening there. There's a ton of products, a ton of brands. You start with ice cream alone. You have your national players, then you have all your regional players. It's something that I think is more unique to ice cream than just about any other category in the store, where anywhere you sell, like we're a national brand, but anywhere you go, there's going to be these regional players that have really strong footholds in their home turf. They likely have their own shops that are, almost like a marketing channel of getting people to try the product and fall in love with their products. And so you're going into someone's home court basically and saying, no, buy us instead. And so that's happening in all these different regions around the country, on top of competing with the national players, both major established brands like the Haagen-Dazs, Ben and Jerry's, to the like awesome brands that have maybe come a handful of years before us, that are the other like emerging brands and newer brands in the space. And then every day there's new brands that are coming out as well. And so it's a very competitive category with a lot of innovation. And then you're seeing that across the freezer, where you're seeing like frozen meals and other types of things really getting interesting. And I mean, I think there's probably a lot of different reasons for why is the freezer particularly having so much innovation right now. Maybe it's because people like want to bulk buy and can store stuff in the freezer more, or maybe it's just convenience. So if you just reheat something, if it's like more of a meal type product.
This episode is brought to you by Glimpse. Glimpse is an AI-powered end-to-end deductions management service that's focused on recovering revenue from KeHE, UNFI, Amazon, and Target for consumer brands. They centralize deductions with backups. They fully handle disputing on your behalf, the brand's behalf, and streamline the accounting process. For more information, check out tryglimpse.com and let them know that Mike sent you.
But yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening there. It's cool to see. But yeah, ice cream everyone probably thinks their category is extremely hard. I think ice cream has to be one of the hardest categories in the store to compete in.
Well, thanks for that. Think about ice cream and think about maybe some of the newer brands that are on the block. What's your opinion or thoughts on protein ice cream?
Yeah.
And if you want to plead the fifth, I totally get it.
No, it feels weird to not be one of the newer brands now. Like it feels like I'm like grown up, which is a very odd feeling. On protein ice cream, I think it's something that people definitely really want. It's maybe not for me, but I totally get like the appeal behind it. And there are some brands that are doing it that are doing really well. And so like that's awesome. But so far to this point, we've decided not to get involved in that space. I think the fun thing about ice cream is you can do it in so many different ways. There's so many everyone eats ice cream. Like it's wild the size of the category and how many people are buying ice cream on a regular basis. And so there's plenty of room for everyone to do their unique thing within the category. So like, yeah, why not?
That's fair. That's totally fair. How also do you think, A2, and I know that obviously you use A2 dairy in your ice cream, and that's maybe a big reason why after one eats your ice cream that it they might actually not feel as bad. But how much do you think in the zeitgeist, just A2, understanding A2 really is?
I think it's still very early. It's definitely seen a big uptick over the past year or so. I've noticed when I explain what I'm doing, there's way more of feeling, oh, A2, yeah, I started drinking A2 milk, or someone in my family started drinking A2 milk. Whereas before, it was a lot of me explaining what A2 is and the benefits of it and how it all works. And it's definitely still very early, but I think it's what we were talking about earlier, like that crossing that chasm, like it's moving through that stage where more and more people are becoming aware of it. And I think it's only going to keep growing. And yeah, for us, it's a big reason why people are able to enjoy our ice cream and feel great afterwards.
What's your creative process when it comes to developing flavors?
So with developing flavors, it's really a collaborative process of we're looking at a couple different things. We're looking at, as a brand, what type of flavors do we want to put out into the world? Because within such a flavor-driven category like ice cream, your flavor is kind of everything in a way. And so we're really thinking about, okay, well, what does an Alex ice cream flavor look like, taste like, and sound like? And then we're looking at our list of flavors that we have, and where are the gaps, where are flavors that, territories that we have missing. Like, do we have a strawberry flavor, but for example, like, oh, we don't have a strawberry flavor. We should really do something with that. Like, what are some ideas that we could do that fit within the kind of niche that we're trying to fill from a flavor standpoint within the category, and bring something unique to the strawberry set of flavors that are available. So that's a big part of it. And then it's a very collaborative process. We do all of our flavor development in-house. So myself, marketing team, our R&D lead is involved with it. And, just really trying to create these really amazing, delicious flavors that stick to the brand and kind of the positioning that we're trying to take in the category.
That makes sense. And if it's too early to answer this question, I totally understand. But when you bring on a VC on your cap table, when you think about, value add, what do investors typically add value in, like, your scenario besides capital? Because a lot of investors say, hey, we add so much value, XYZ. What I heard through the grapevines is sometimes that's not always the case. What's kind of your take when it came to choosing the right partner and everything?
So I think it's really important to make sure that the VC or investor that you go with really is aligned with what you're looking for out of that investor. I think a lot of investors say that they provide a lot of value. And, it's you see on how much value you actually get. But I will say, for us working with the team at Imaginary, they've been awesome. And, we just started working with them recently, but they've been really great and helping us think through how do we grow our brand and grow what we're doing to reach more people, get more awareness, drive velocities. And I think they've been a really great thought partner of how do we keep ramping the business and doing really cool things on the marketing front while also solidifying, the fundamentals of the business. So they've been awesome with their network and helping make introductions and connecting us with great people. I think ultimately, there's a lot, the way I think it's been helpful for me to think about bringing a VC on board and someone on the board of our company. And, there's a lot of, concern from people in my position around bringing somebody on, especially as an earlier stage business. You're like, are they just going to tell me what to do and all this stuff? And I think how I'm viewing it is, you have this person that's on your team. They want you to succeed. And obviously they have their motivations and like what success looks like for them. And how do you use them as a thought partner and a resource to maybe challenge your thinking or push you a little bit in a different direction than maybe you thought you wanted to go in. And that push can be a good push. Like, it's not always a bad push from the VC. Like, it can be a good push of, we weren't like thinking about this as thoroughly as we should be, or we didn't see this opportunity just because we're too close to the situation, and you have someone on the outside being able to provide a different perspective. So I think it's really about like, how do you create a healthy dialogue, healthy conversation, and use that conversation to get the company and the business to like the best place. And that can be, there can be tension at times of like, well, I think this and you think that. And then like, how do you take everyone's ideas and through that like conversation land in a place where it moves everything forward. And then I think just being open communicators as well. Like, it's better if something is not going well within the business, it's better to share that immediately and be upfront about it so you can address it versus like try to hide it and, cover it up or whatever, because that won't go well.
No, that's really helpful. Just in the back of your mind, in terms of raising the Series A, again, dumb questions. Probably all my questions are dumb, but why raise a Series A? Why raise the 11 million? I mean, Culture Cup, I'd imagine Culture Cup is doing so well that you want to put even the gas further on Culture Cup. But how does it actually translate into where to actually spend those funds and what kind of success looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, it was, how do we like you said, how do we accelerate what we're doing and being able to build out the team? We've been running super lean as a team to this point. And how do we bring in some leaders to help, run different functions within the business, take things off of my plate. And then also, how do we now support the distribution that we've won and really, give it the proper marketing support, the proper trade support that it needs. And also, keep opening up new distribution. And, so I think it's like, okay, we found the thing that works. We found the product that people are super excited about. Now, how do we build the resources around it to grow that and make it a big success? And so for me, it's like, okay, we've solved that like product equation. And so now it's like, okay, there's a lot of other things that we need to solve for, and bringing in that capital and the partner to help us go do that.
Love that. That's really helpful. So on the product side, do you see more product expansions, or do you feel like we're set with these? Let's scale with Culture Cup and Pints.
I'd say a little bit of both. I think we're always thinking about innovation, and we've got some ideas that we're playing around with and experimenting with, but also staying focused on what we have. And okay, we've got these products that are working. So how do we just keep growing those and staying focused on that?
Is there a person or a company that you feel like you're pretty inspired by when it comes to how you're building your company?
There are a few, I guess. I don't know if I have like I want to be exactly like this person or like this company. I think there's different things that I think about, or like different examples that I bring in as I try to make decisions, or that I look to for inspiration. I mean, there's when I think about the product standpoint, I mean, looking at even within our own category, looking at like a Ben and Jerry's and them just really defining for a generation, like, what does ice cream flavor look like? And what does a product experience look like and feel like and taste like? And when you think about their brand, like you can if you hear a flavor, like it just sounds, like that sounds like a flavor they would make, kind of thing. And so I do get a lot of inspiration from them on the product side. And then, also looking at like on the business side, I don't know if I have one that's like a great example, but it's more like just little quotes here and there of, one quote that I really liked from a book that I read recently. It was from Barry Diller's autobiography. And he's talking about how he was figuring things out, how he always figures them out, like taking one stumbling step, one after the other, and like eventually getting to the destination. That's paraphrasing. That's not the exact quote, but it's just like something that I get inspired by is hearing about these really successful people who, when you see their end result, you're like, oh, wow, they were so smart and they had it all figured out. And they just like, knew exactly what they're doing. And really, it's a lot of working really hard, making mistakes, figuring out what's wrong, fixing it, and then also getting lucky along the way and creating great products that people get really excited about. And, I just kind of like take that to heart and try to implement that in what we're doing.
Over the course of this journey thus far, what do you feel like you've changed your mind most about?
It's a good question. What do I feel like I've changed my mind most about?
This episode is brought to you by Glimpse. Glimpse is an AI-powered end-to-end deductions management service that's focused on recovering revenue from KeHE, UNFI, Amazon, and Target for consumer brands. They centralize deductions with backups. They fully handle disputing on your behalf, the brand's behalf, and streamline the accounting process. For more information, check out tryglimpse.com and let them know that Mike sent you.
I don't know if it's I've changed my mind about it, but I've learned that things take way longer than you think. And they're usually going to cost more than you think. And being prepared, and you can't always just will your way through something and, force it to happen on your timeline. So I think that's been a big one. Yeah, I don't know if I have something that I've like fundamentally changed how I view the world or something like that.
No, I love that. No, yeah. That's great. That's great. My final question is, what's one book that you feel like has inspired you personally, and one book that's inspired you professionally?
Ooh. Personally, I think this might be somewhat cliche, but I think reading Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight autobiography, that was just like such a cool story. And just like, I really get inspired by people who go on these like big journeys and really, overcome a lot of adversity. I think another one to get out of like a classic business book that probably many people would say, this one maybe is a little more different, but not super crazy different, is Endurance. It's about, I'm blanking on the explorer's name, but he was trying to cross through, I think he was trying to cross through the South Pole on his boat. And
yes. Endurance.
Yes. Endurance. So that book for me was just like such an amazing look at literally endurance and people persevering through these insane challenges and these insane circumstances. And that's a value that I really believe in and hold closely. And then from a business standpoint, being that this is a CPG and consumer podcast, like I'm sure people have said ramping your brand, but that to me, by Dr. James Richardson, that book to me was the most clear look at how to think about building a brand in CPG, in consumer, how to think about retail, how to think about growth trajectories, and all the things that you need to consider. It's the book that I always recommend when people come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about starting this brand. I always recommend that book because I think it's a very well-written and thoughtful book.
I love it. So the most recommended book on this show is Shoe Dog. Surprise, surprise. Endurance. I
gotta give a better answer than Shoe Dog.
No, not at all. Not at all. It shows you how incredible of a story is and everything. Cause there's so many, moments that you're like, wait, this is Nike and they still make it, So, but then Endurance has been mentioned a couple of times, and I don't know if Ramping Your Brand has, but I'm very familiar with it and love following him on LinkedIn. This is great. Alec, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation.
And there you have it. Alec, thank you so much for coming on this show. Glimpse, thanks so much for sponsoring this episode. And you all, thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. I hope you loved it. And if you do love it, then you'll subscribe at theconsumervc.com to the newsletter. Thanks for listening.